everyone. Welcome to Party Like a Marketer, the podcast dedicated to cannabis marketing, public relations, and authentic storytelling. I'm your host, Lisa Buffo, the founder and CEO of the Cannabis Marketing Association. CMA is a membership-based group focused on education and best practices for industry marketers. I'm a former CMO myself and really struggled with marketing once I joined the cannabis industry with all of its unique restrictions, compliance issues, and aspects to storytelling that are not as common in other industries. So this community is for marketers working in this space, looking to join the space, who are looking for education, best practices, and community. We host regular webinars. We have our members as guests on this podcast. We host events, including our annual Cannabis Marketing Summit, which is a conference that we hold in person for our members every year. And we produce downloadables and white papers all in an online member portal, including a Slack channel for our members to connect and ask each other questions. Each week, we host a new guest on the show who are members of the organization that share their unique expertise in the cannabis industry and tell stories about their journey in marketing that can help other listeners of the show better understand how to navigate cannabis marketing themselves. Today's guest is Vib Gupta. Vib is a seasoned software engineer and founder of CannMenus, a leading big data technology company in the cannabis industry. Vib and his co-founders started CannMenus in 2019, recognizing the scarcity of data-driven solutions for the cannabis market, and leveraged their expertise in big data platform engineering in the development of CannMenus' unique software offerings. Under Vib's leadership, CannMenus has launched a cross-platform product search offering that simplifies the process for consumers to find cannabis products online, as well as a business intelligence platform that provides detailed regional insights for industry operators. Please welcome today's guest. Vib, thanks so much for joining us on the show.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Really excited to talk marketing today.
Yes, so are we. You've got such a good background in this space and insight into cannabis, so I'm very excited to learn from you as well this morning. But first, could you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and CannMenus? What is your professional background? How did you get into the cannabis space? And tell us about the company and what you do from the founder perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. So my background is in software engineering. My co-founders and I actually met while working on big data platforms for Internet of Things use cases, super industrial, multinational corporations. Startup called Uptake in Chicago. When we met, it was pretty clear that we all kind of had this entrepreneurial drive, and so I think that was one thing that really brought us together. And then, of course, just being cannabis people, I think we found each other pretty much immediately, which I think cannabis people tend to do no matter where they are, especially back in the days when it wasn't even adult use rec yet. So it was a little bit of more taboo and whatnot. But we started talking about business ideas pretty much right away that we could start to work on. Like I said, it was pretty clear from the get-go that we gelled and that we could do something together. And we really had some complementary skills there. Just naturally, we started looking at the cannabis industry around the end of 2018. There was some rumors that Illinois was probably going to go fully adult use. The medical program seemed to be doing really well. More and more people that you would talk to had a medical card in Illinois. And then at the same time, you would look into cannabis retail and it would be super limited. Even though it was a medical market, we kind of anticipated seeing some of the other markets struggle going from med to rec. That the current kind of operational processes and the technology that supports those processes just wasn't really there for the cannabis industry. It was a situation where we would have expected an industry that was created in 2012, 2014 to be, very technology forward. And at the time, it wasn't really, because of some of the things that we know today very well, that you have to build a lot of the times technology more specific for the cannabis industry because of the nuances of the cannabis business and compliance and everything like that. So once we took a look at it, it made sense. And once we saw that opportunity, it really seemed like a perfect fit to take our backgrounds in software engineering, our passion for the cannabis plant, and combine those. And I think, honestly, it's become really a unique combination of skill sets that have contributed to just our success and our enjoyment in what we do, which I think contributes to our success for sure. So that's how we got started. And really our goal initially was to create a platform that could make sense of cannabis data online, which we saw that there was a very increasing amount of that was being created. So that was really our first focus, is like, where can we get data online, either by partnering with people or by taking a look at publicly available data? And then how can we create a platform that can actually understand cannabis better than, so that we can take kind of this unstructured data online, clean it up, make it structured, and make it super, super usable. The first use case that we had developed on top of this data platform, we like to refer to as like kayak.com, but for cannabis. So just like Kayak lets you do a search across travel industry websites, we'll do the same thing for cannabis. Let you do a search, direct you out to where you can make your best purchase in your area. And then on the B2B side, we have a SaaS platform that pretty much takes those same data points from our platform and exposes them to cannabis operators so that they can keep an eye on what's selling in retail at what prices, basically.
So on the consumer side, when you say search like Kayak, which is a really good reference, I could say I'm looking for Vib's brand edibles, and it will help find it near me across different sites. Like that's how you can search for products or retailers or both.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. So that was the goal from the very beginning, particularly just being very familiar with the problems that medical patients were facing in getting products from licensed dispensaries. It was really difficult for, especially in Illinois, we've got basically the highest prices in the country. There's only a few markets that have prices higher than Illinois. They've started to come down, but especially at the time, it was $60 eighths, $60 1 gram, half gram cartridges were basically the norm, not even 1 gram cartridges. So really, when I would see people waiting an hour and a half in a dispensary waiting room that had like physical medical conditions and were uncomfortable, literally, sitting there just to get their medicine. And then, it turns out the strain they wanted is sold out, or the strain that actually works for them, and there's only a few, they just can't get it. So really, yeah, that was the goal, is, get as specific as you want in terms of the products that you're looking for. It could be that you're looking for an edible that has CBG, something super niche as a minor cannabinoid. Do that search. Will help you search across websites. So no matter if it's Steezy with one eye entered on Leafly and Steezy with 5 eyes on iHeartJane, we can join those records together and help you compare it in one spot.
Okay, cool. So it's not just brand specific, it's attribute or feature specific. And do you also have any features where it's like for the medical side, people can search based on condition? Like I need a topical for chronic pain, and it would help show you what that might be and where you could get it.
Yeah, not yet, but that is definitely something that we would love to add as an enhancement. The effect-based stuff is so tricky.
Yeah.
We definitely don't want to misinform anybody, and I think the research is developing, but we are actually looking to partner with a couple of companies, different companies that do recommendations of that sort in different ways. And really, I think that's part of our ethos is we don't want to own the cannabis data space. We really want to enable all sorts of applications to be built on top of this platform, right? And what we're really good at is collecting, making sense of, and organizing cannabis data, and doing that in a very flexible, easy to use way. And we would love to enable all sorts of companies that are working on research based on effects or influencer based reviews for adult use. And just helping people find those products, once they read those reviews.
Okay, cool. That makes sense. And then lastly, just to clarify on the B2B side, so when you say brands can search and sort of see what's selling at retail and those price points, is it like a kind of like a Bloomberg terminal where they can just like see all the data, or is it more of is it a wholesale side where they can actually purchase or see what's available there? Like, can you just describe that a little bit more?
Yeah, definitely. No, I would liken it more to your Bloomberg example for sure. And that's the current state. Future vision, we would absolutely love to start enabling more workflows through the actual platform, probably through partnerships and integrations with some other companies that are really good at, automated text message marketing or on the wholesale side, reorders and things like that. So for right now, it's kind of like, Bloomberg's a great example. We actually like to use Nielsen IQ with their kind
Okay,
of
yeah.
retail monitoring platform. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, current state, it's a platform that lets you look at, explore the data, play around with it, export it, so that you can use it for your own internal reporting. And future vision, we would love to start to enable more of the workflow straight within the application.
Okay, cool. Thank you for describing that. And do you mind sharing with us a little bit about your personal relationship with cannabis too? I know we talked about it, but like, can you sort of bring that story together about how you were working in this space and you developed this technology, but also I know you were a medical patient in Illinois, yes?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, my relationship with cannabis goes back to my teenage years. I was definitely a little bit of a rebellious teenager. I was fascinated by the plant from an early age, and obviously just um, uh, baffled from the beginning as to why something as innocuous as cannabis compared to other things that are more heavily abused is so illegal and so taboo. So it really, I think as a kid, when you hear something from authority figures, which you then find out is very, very, very not true, you start to question authority in general, right? So I think it
Yeah.
contributed to kind of this rebellious nature and like, oh, you're saying that it's so bad for me. I know that it's not. So it must be extremely healthy, which is not, looking back in retrospect, too young to be, consuming cannabis and consuming the volume of cannabis that I was doing at the time. But that's where my journey definitely began. And I know a lot of people use the saying, all cannabis use is medicinal use, and yeah, I definitely feel like there was a an aspect that was medicinal for me, even in high school when it was more so kind of the recreational kind of culture that more of the stoner type lifestyle that I was living. Um, when when all of the taboos started to fade little by little, and I think really there was like content that was coming out on TV for the first time, like CNN. Sanjay Gupta did the weed documentary. I think it was called Weed.
Yeah.
I feel like that was like a huge turning point in the perception of cannabis and educated people to CBD in particular. And I think like it's been really interesting to kind of see how cannabis advocates have marketed for legalization, right? Where they're like, hey, look, how can you deny this little kid access to CBD, something that doesn't even get them high? And then a year or two later, they're like, well, look, it's cannabis, it's totally harmless. Let's just legalize it. And that's kind of how it's gone. And that's great. I definitely support, total legalization and decriminalization of cannabis. And I think it's an absolute shame that there's still cannabis arrests in Illinois and medical patients, that get in trouble and have a huge liability in Illinois. So I really, I do continue to advocate for further cannabis reform, but that was kind of how my cannabis journey got started. Really, really fascinated, fell in love with the plant at an early age. Really started consuming all content related to the legal cannabis industry from a very early age as well, and was just fascinated by the technology behind it. I've always been, a tech geek, and seeing, new devices that would allow you to vaporize in different ways, seeing new technologies from the grower side, and producing crazy beautiful plants, and the science developing was really fascinating to me. And if it wasn't for my fascination with cannabis and wanting to consume information about it, I certainly don't think I would have been able to put together the data platform that we were able to put together, right? And even just going to dispensaries and looking at the menus, that's something that actually I've been fascinated with since I first saw a dispensary menu, a coffee shop menu in Amsterdam. So I was 17 years old. There was a school trip to Amsterdam that I was lucky enough to be a part of, to Holland. Amsterdam was a part of it. And yeah, it just fascinated me that there was this legal cannabis industry. It wasn't what everybody thought, where everybody would think, oh, it's legal cannabis, they're all just over there smoking weed all the time and it's just a bunch of stoners. Like, no, it's a very sophisticated culture, complicated but sophisticated culture. And, that kind of continued on to when I would go out to restaurants when I would be a little bit older. And every time I go to a restaurant, I really study the menu. Like, what do you have on the menu? How do you have it organized? And I think that translates over to cannabis dispensary menus as well too. So, one of my favorite things to do is just kind of take a look at everything a dispensary offers, especially if they're one that has found a niche. And I do really hope that more retailers find a niche and do less of the here's 3,000 SKUs and we basically have everything. Might not be the freshest, but what do you need? So yeah, sorry, long-winded answer about my kind of history with cannabis, but been fascinated by it from a very early age. Full disclosure, definitely did get in a little bit of trouble during high school for cannabis as well. And so that absolutely contributed to my desire to, when the industry went legal, do what I can to participate in the industry because of how much it adversely affected me in my life early on.
And did you grow up in Chicago?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Even worse, the suburbs of Chicago, which are even stricter about cannabis. So
yeah, I can imagine. It was definitely different growing up for sure than it is now.
Yeah,
Well,
I never would have imagined that, a few short years, it could go from everybody's getting arrested to the state's making billions of dollars in cannabis revenue.
Yeah.
It's just nuts.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm sure it was kind of what was the experience like in your home state?
Same. Well, I grew up out in the suburbs of Cleveland, Ohio, so not too far from you in Chicago. And I was in high school 2004 to 2008, and it was there was definitely disparities about how it was enforced and who it was enforced on and what that looked like. And it was talked about in health class, but it wasn't. It was sort of accepted, but it was like, I don't want to say it was accepted, but it was accepted sort of the way drinking was, in the sense that like people knew the kids were doing it. Some kids did, and like as long as you weren't stupid and didn't get caught, they didn't go out of their way to enforce it. But if you got caught, they enforced it, and they were very clear about it. And you could get suspended from school or lose your privileges. Like I played sports. People would get suspended from games, things like that, which was actually quite detrimental to students and student athletes to lose time in school or in your extracurricular activities. And occasionally some people, like if it was bad enough, they could, not necessarily threaten like your path to college or whatnot, but they would scare you for sure to make sure you didn't do it again, or you kind of understood the consequences of it. But yeah, there was not the tolerance from the adult perspective as far as there being open communication about it. And there was more, I would say, shock and surprise when people would use cannabis and get caught for it relative to alcohol, when alcohol had such, like everyone was learning how to drive, like there's not much to do in the suburbs at that age. So you'd be out and about, and it was definitely different than it is today, although I'm not in high school today, so I don't know exactly how it plays out. But I'm still in Ohio now. I moved back to Cleveland after being in Colorado for about 10 years. And Ohio just legalized this year. They've had medical for a while, so it's the culture's changed for sure, but it was not, it like sort of was tolerated and sort of wasn't in the same breath.
Yeah, absolutely. Really exciting about Ohio for sure. That's going to be a really fun market to watch over the next couple of years.
Yeah, we're excited about it. Well, I want to talk marketing a little bit too, and I want to hear from your perspective as an entrepreneur. I want to get into some of the insights from CannMenus as well. But so many of us, myself included, are small business owners in this space. Came up with an idea based on a problem that we had, which sounds like you did too, where you actually experienced this problem of waiting in line, not being able to have the inventory you wanted, and it causing you issues as a customer and as a patient. What were some of your first steps into marketing CannMenus, the business itself, when you got into the industry? So I'm guessing, so did you launch like early 2019? What was that environment like? And what was sort of your first, all right, here's how we're going to start telling people about it and marketing the company within the space? Because you have an interesting angle in that you're B2B to C. But I don't know, did you develop one side of that first and kind of market it to one audience first? Or what was sort of your V1 of CannMenus internal marketing?
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a great question. Just to start off, I think I've mentioned this to you before, Lisa. We're as technologists, we're very clueless about marketing. I think we have an appreciation for it, certainly, but we're not marketers. We've learned a lot over the past few years. But yeah, early 2019, throughout 2019, we were really focused on just proving out the concept in terms of the technology, right? Can this actually work? And that has just challenging ourselves to find out if we can do it has been so valuable for us. If we don't try to assume like, yeah, we can probably do this. We might not be able to do this. We don't put that doubt in our heads. We go, okay, can we do this? How can we make this happen? And that has worked to our advantage in actually making it happen. So that was really the first kind of year of development. Once the data platform was kind of up and running, and we actually had a product, we realized that we probably should have been thinking about the marketing for this whole past year, right? And it would have benefited us. So, in hindsight, it was like, or what do we do now? And of course, we made the classic first time entrepreneur, I think, mistake of, if you build it, they will come, right? This is such a useful platform. Who wouldn't want to do a universal search for cannabis, find the best prices, save some money, find the best products? Like, just got to put it out there, and it'll probably go viral, right? No, it's not really how it works. In the early days, I really didn't even know where to look for cannabis people. I had kind of become friends with the general manager at the dispensary that I frequented, and I started talking to him a little bit, and he was like, yeah, here's my card, let's talk. And I generally found that people at dispensaries, especially as a medical patient, would listen to me, right? I think that angle kind of worked, and they saw that I had, I think they saw that I had a passion for what I was doing. I really cared. I wanted to actually create something that would be good for the industry, move the industry forward. So that was really kind of what I was doing in the very beginning, was really grasping for straws. When shutdown hit, really affected your ability to kind of go out there and
The
visit
pandemic.
retailers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, when pandemic hit. So that kind of put um, a pause to the, I can just go out to retailers and try to talk to somebody to jumpstart this type of thing. And of course, we went online. We went to Clubhouse was big
Yeah.
during the
I remember
pandemic.
those days.
There was a lot, yeah, there was a lot of cannabis rooms on Clubhouse. That was really cool because I got to, figure out who some of the cannabis influencers were in my area, follow them on Instagram, started DMing people. And it was amazing that they actually responded. Like I've found that from the very beginning. Like, you just email people, DM people, you keep it short, keep it genuine, you have an ask for them, they'll usually respond, even if they're very, very busy, very successful people. And that was a really cool lesson learned from the beginning. And one of the folks I linked up with on Clubhouse is still an advisor to our company today, and has been huge for our company. But really, in the beginning, it was like, how can I start talking to people? Maybe if I can get an influencer to post about this, it'll go viral. Maybe if I can get on Reddit and start posting about this, it'll go viral. I think, not sophisticatedly, just put a couple of different posts up on Reddit, and a little bit of traction. I got some replies. Hey, this is really cool, really useful. Thanks for putting this together. But definitely nothing like that went viral, right? Literally, like, I can't remember if it was weeks or months after my first Reddit post, somebody else had created a platform that was kind of similar to what we were doing, but it was only product alerts. So you couldn't do a search, but you could set up a alert and you could be notified of like, hey, like, this product is back in stock in this dispensary. So it was a scaled down version of what we had kind of built on our product search side. And this person obviously was much better at the marketing because he was all over Reddit, all the communities. He had like a really well structured post, that looked really good. And, he had hundreds and hundreds of likes across like 25, 30, different communities that I saw this post
Oh my gosh.
shared on. Yeah, yeah, for sure. So it was like, okay, like, it's not what I'm sharing, it's how I'm doing it, and the whole approach to it. It's got to be more nuanced. So it's not the channel that's wrong. It's not, it's this whole holistic approach. And it was a really interesting learning experience of like, oh, it's not that I thought that I could make this go viral on Reddit or mini viral or whatever, and it didn't work. So it's just not going to work. There's another approach that can definitely work better, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Reddit's a hard one to crack. We've dabbled in it too, but it's its own kind of beast. But yeah, that's cool that you guys started, and we actually had a similar time frame. We launched early 19, and our 1 year was right when the pandemic hit. And we actually, our first year, we had a very boots on the ground, in person marketing strategy. And lockdown changed so many things for so
Yeah.
many people and businesses who were in the early stages. So I empathize with you there for sure. Um, okay. And then you had mentioned that after that, you guys had started to get into content marketing a little bit. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And can you tell me a little bit about that? Like how did you then take those lessons from Reddit and what you had tried and sort of seeing if things could go viral into like a content marketing approach? Like what was kind of that process like? And what was some of that first content that you were putting out?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. When we got started with the content side of things, for us it was all like theory and conjecture, right? We didn't know whether what we were going to do would actually work in terms of putting out content, putting out some SEO optimized pages, and hopefully increasing our traffic. But we could see that there was evidence that there's a lot of cannabis related searches happening online for a variety of a variety of topics for people looking for dispensaries near them, looking for brands and products near them, but also a ton of people just looking for information about cannabis in general, right? So we had this theory that it's low enough hanging fruit, and that we could actually build up some authority and start to rank for these keywords. And at the same time, they're not keywords that are worthless. They're very valuable keywords, right? So that was just kind of this initial thought that we had. We didn't really know how to make it happen or how it was going to work. So we did bring someone on who had a little bit more experience on that side of things to help us kind of take what we wanted to do on the content side and bring it to life. And that included putting out articles, informative articles, kind of tailored towards some of the things that we saw people searching for on SEMrush. It's a
Yeah.
huge platform for us in terms of helping educate us into kind of the different terminologies and dimensions around digital marketing. But then, of course, just having very specific, actionable measurements, and on the technical side, the audits of our website to make sure that all of our websites were structured properly and we actually had the technical SEO correct. Can't talk can't say enough good things about SEMrush. It's been amazing for us, and I think it's really cool that someone who doesn't know much about marketing can go into something like SEMrush and have a lot of success. But yeah, that was kind of our focus. It was how can we kind of create let's focus on nailing the basics. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. How can we have useful content on pages that are structured properly, tags, headers, titleized, optimized for the keywords we're trying to reach. Let's see if we can just keep putting out pages, build up authority, really slowly start to build up authority. The person we were working with at the time that was creating some of this content was like, these results are good. It takes time to build up. And we're like, I don't know, maybe not. Like, you don't really believe it until you see it. And then when you see it, like a month or two, 3 months later after publishing an article, and it's all of a sudden it's skyrocketing to the top of Google and you're finally getting traffic from it. It's a really cool, rewarding feeling. And it's, definitely conditions you, I think, to more of the delayed gratification, the long-term thinking that you have to, that attitude that you have to take on when it comes to content marketing. So that was kind of the beginnings of it when we really ramped up, and that was about a little over a year ago, was when we started put out SEO optimized pages for every retailer that we have menu data for on our platform, every brand
Mm-hmm.
that we have on our platform, pages for at the city and state level as well. Just kind of the whole shebang out there. And we really started ranking for, then thousands and thousands of keywords, increased our traffic by an insane amount, week over week, month over month last year. And so it was, again, really rewarding to see. And I think it was a situation where we started slow, proved out the concept, and then really turned it on the faucet. And now, we have a lot of people that come through our website. At the last measurement, it was 150K monthly users. And the coolest part for me is the retention metrics. There's 15-20% of users end up coming back after 30 days right now. So just the fact that there's a little bit of stickiness there, and we don't monetize our B2C site at all. There's no advertising. It's really just a utility for people right now to get value out of. And it's just cool to see people actually using it, going to trade shows and events, and people telling me about their experiences using it and knowing about it. It's definitely a cool thing.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, and that's a good overall sort of marketing philosophy. It's like start slow, test things, see what works, and then scale up and put resources behind what is working, because it does take time to start to see results, but it can have a compound or snowball effect if you're thoughtful about it.
Especially when you have little to no money. We bootstrapped this company. We have a little bit of investor money in right now, but certainly nowhere near kind of the millions that some of our competitors have raised, and that's kind of been part of our philosophy of just startup development is don't raise a ton of money if you don't need to. We've kind of taken the opposite route. We worked at a lot of startups that took the other route and were very successful. But I think with technology valuations kind of moving from revenue to profitability, we were, I think, a little bit ahead of the game on that, just kind of not wanting to fall into that trap of just raise a bunch of money, raise more money, and keep doing that until maybe you hit it big. We kind of wanted to take a little bit more of a smarter approach, I should say. I don't want to say smarter because I don't want to put anybody down that takes the other approach, but it worked for us. It had to work for us because we didn't have the money.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, we're bootstrapped too. I echo that same philosophy. Gives you a little more, I don't want to say control, but also yes, because you get to sort of dictate the path and your pace and have some seniority with it. So that's really cool. But yeah, bootstrapping is not easy at all.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Plus you can like take more risks and pivot, I think, especially when maybe you're still trying to figure out your direction early on.
Yeah, and listen to yourself, because there's sometimes you just sort of know things about your own business or what's happening internally that may not make sense on paper, or it's kind of just a feeling based on what you know and how it's working, but you don't have to, it's you and the team. You guys can do that. So
absolutely.
I want to talk a little bit about 420. I know last week we did a webinar for CMA members, and you guys have had some really interesting data because you do get all of this search traffic across the US. And there's a few points that had really stuck out to me. One of the things you had mentioned was about how, I think you said last year 420 was on a Thursday, so that sales cycle started the weekend before, so it was really like a 10-day long event. Can you talk a little bit to the audience about overall what you've seen in your data in relation to 420? As of this recording, it's early March. We know it's coming up quickly. And really 420 is like our big event in the cannabis industry, but it is also indicative of other kind of events-based marketing and, how folks approach, or I should say how businesses approach different sales cycles around holiday at retail. What are some of the insights that you have that just really stick out to you about the holiday that would be helpful for marketers to know? And I just want to get into that a little bit.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The first thing that's really cool to see, I think, this year is how early people are talking about 420. We've been pretty much talking about it with folks since late January, and at this point, people are in like full tilt. A lot of the brands and retailers that we're talking to today are very focused on capitalizing on 420 this year, and I think that's maybe not. I think that's an increasing amount over the last couple of years. So it's cool to see that people, yeah, and I think that it's also indicative of just like the increasing sophistication of technology and the tools that are available for brands and retailers, and it's cool to see that people now feel like they have tools, data, information to help plan things more ahead of time. But yeah, 420, super exciting time. I think obviously just a really crazy time for cannabis retail in general. Some of the things I think we shared on the webinar that I'll just like recount here. Last year, looking at five or six of the largest markets in the country, it was about a 1.5x increase on 420 as compared to a normal Friday, not even compared to a normal Thursday. So certainly, a huge opportunity. I think if you were to guess about the change in like demographics shopping on 420, you would guess that it's more of the casual users, more of the less of the people that are everyday users. Certainly, that's a huge part of retail sales in general. I think the Pareto principle definitely applies to cannabis, where most of your sales are going to come from the smallest amount of users and all of that. But in 420 on 420, it really things really do shift. You see a definitely marked increase in pre-roll sales, concentrate sales, and things that are really specialty for sure. So within vapes, a lot more people buy pods, like the specialty pods, as compared to generic vape carts. People are in concentrates, people are buying more of the live resin, more of the live rosin. So there's definitely a ton of evidence that there's a lot more people that are going to be coming into retail looking for premium products on 420. So I think that's important to mention because a lot of people focus a lot on just discounting, offering good deals. And that's part of it. And people don't want to feel like they're getting ripped off. But I think there's a ton of evidence that people in cannabis, looking at the data, that people will pay a premium for a premium product. Like, again, nobody wants to be ripped off, but people will, gladly pay more for live rosin, if they can afford it. And that's what they prefer. If you kind of try to do analyses on like price elasticity in cannabis, there's not a ton of evidence that we found, and I think that other people who've done this research have found that shows that cannabis is heavily price elastic. I think it's actually relatively inelastic. So I think when we're talking to brands and retailers, we certainly try to encourage them to avoid discounting like crazy. And it's like, you're going to have eyes on your retail establishment. You're going to have more foot traffic. Certainly do what you can to, inform people early on of what you're going to be doing, but it's not about discounting everything 50%. I think it's about really making sure your product mix is indicative of, really more congruent, I should say, with the expected, product mix based on what happened in your area last year, right? And that's one of the things we love doing with CannMenus is you can get down to a very specific region. You don't have to say, hey, here's the data for all of California, because California's a pretty big state. Even within LA, things change significantly from, Fremont. Sorry, did I say Fremont? Is that in LA or is that in California?
I think it's San Francisco.
Yeah, never mind.
I don't know.
Or Seattle. I don't even know. What am I thinking of? Like El Segundo to downtown LA, completely different markets to Temecula, see, I know LA. Okay.
Yeah, there you
go. But yeah, so I think in terms of the discounting cycle, I'm very eager to see how things land this year. I don't anticipate retailers will start discounting, the weekend before. It doesn't make any sense to really, based on the data. The increases in traffic really happen right around 420. There's a little bit of a bump that happens, last year that happened the weekend before 420, but I think most people are wanting to celebrate 420 on 420, especially when it's close to or on a weekend. So this year with 420 being on a Saturday, I think the industry is really expecting it to be huge, and it should be huge. There should be tons of parties, events, activations that'll be really cool. Another thing that's data driven that we would recommend is, don't forget about accessories. Make sure you have vape batteries and all sorts of paraphernalia on hand, and use that in your bundling strategy. Accessories are usually pretty high markup, and could be a way to offer deals without deeply discounting on the actual cannabis, or vice versa. So yeah, I think just the headline is 420 is not typical, by any means. It's a totally different mix of people, a lot more traffic. in terms of e-commerce, make sure your e-commerce is really, really clean, organized, everything's labeled properly. That's like the easiest thing that you can do to increase your sales on any day of the week. And on 420, the only way you can handle, that most retailers can handle that type of increase in traffic effectively is by using all the technology that's available to them. So, I think some of the things that we've been talking to brands and retailers about over these past few weeks.
Cool. Thank you. And yeah, I would agree too, at least from our side, that this year is probably the year we've seen businesses and brands focus on 420 as soon as they could. Earlier than the curve. And I would agree, for us, it was also like end of January where people started putting their plans together and executing on them. But I am excited it's on a Saturday this year and to see what changes. And I do remember you saying too on the webinar about getting your data as hyper local as possible, and just wanted to emphasize that even like within neighborhoods, things can change year over year, and those buying patterns change year over year. And cannabis is such an interesting use case for retail because it is one of the few industries, I think, left where you generally physically have to go to a store to get it. You're not competing with e-commerce as much in terms of like household goods, where you can just go to Amazon as opposed to Target. Cannabis, for the most part, you do have to physically go somewhere. And those dynamics can really change based on how many dispensaries are in your area, the makeup of people in your area, and what they're buying. So I want to echo that point about getting data as hyperlocal as possible. That was a really interesting point that you made. Okay. Well, last few questions before we wrap up. One thing I like to ask about on this show is any fail stories in relation to marketing. So I know you shared a little bit about like what's worked and how that you guys did trying to get an influencer and going viral, but are there any other stories about things that you tried in your startup journey that didn't work, or that you've seen with your clients, like any fail stories in marketing that you're open to sharing with the audience as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in general, I think just definitely want to emphasize our biggest failure was not coming up with a marketing plan sooner, and figuring that it would just fall into place, or that someone else would figure it out. As the founder, you really do need to set the direction, and you need to have that figured out. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to really recruit anybody. Or it's going to be harder to recruit people when you don't have that vision to share. So certainly biggest failure was just not immersing myself into the marketing side of things earlier on, and underestimating the need for a marketing plan, and overestimating the technology, and the viral potential of the technology. In terms of I think in terms of content marketing, one of the biggest failures was really figuring out the best way to communicate information that might be subjective or estimates kind of based on the best data that we have available. I think that the cannabis community is very, very, very sensitive about their own data and how it's represented. So we certainly, when we put out certain pieces of content, got a lot of positive interest, but we got a lot of negative interest as well too. So I think that was a little bit of a failure that we learned from, and now I think we are much better in terms of how we present data, how we present content, and recommendations, and really that kind of situation where people reach out to us and are angry doesn't happen anymore. And sometimes it'll be just a case where hey, my brand or retailer, we have ourselves as like number 3 in the state. You guys have us at number 9 on your list, and it's like, okay, like there's kind of hairs to split a little bit when you're talking about brand ranking. Sometimes a lot of brands are similar, so you can move from 9 to 3, pretty regularly. It's not in the cannabis space. A lot of the times when you're looking at rankings, they're going to be fluid, right? There's just, it's a dynamic market. So really just being able to handle those kind of things, knowing how to put content together in a way that's, I think, maximum usefulness, realistic, something that's going to just add value without making people kind of question whether they can trust us. I think that was kind of one of the things that we learned early on. in terms of the content side of things. And then of course, just how important marketing is, having visuals that represent the data in the right way. Our dashboards, if you take a screenshot of the entire dashboard and you put it onto any piece of marketing collateral, it's going to look horrible. So that was another thing, is kind of like from the data side of it, how do we, take screenshots of data where it's really focused on one single thing. You can look at the screenshot and get an idea of how you can actually take action based on this data, and you can actually read it from a PowerPoint and when you're standing 10 feet away. So all the little things, really, we're kind of I feel like getting back to just marketing 101, but it works. Like, all the stuff works. That's the thing. You don't have to be crazy, sophisticated or complicated from the get-go. Do the basics, they work. Build on top of that. One of the biggest things that helped us out was going to the CMA conference almost 2 years ago as well.
Yay.
And meeting all these people and sitting on these sessions and taking notes. And I think a lot of those people, you see them have a ton of success online today and in the digital marketing world. And that was really cool too. So I think more marketing conferences, more discussions about marketing in cannabis.
I will echo that. But yeah, Vib, thank you so much. Is there anything else you haven't shared today that you want to let the audience know? Any other topics we haven't covered?
No, nothing that I can really think of. I think, definitely always love to meet new people and speak with people. So please do feel free to reach out. I'm on LinkedIn, Vib Gupta. That's a good way to reach me. You can also, check us out at CannMenus.com. Submit a contact us form if you'd like to get in touch. But thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed this discussion, Lisa.
Yes, we appreciate you. And if you reach out to Vib on LinkedIn, let him know you heard him on the podcast as well. I'm sure you get a lot of LinkedIn requests. But Vib, really appreciate you sharing your insights. We will link your LinkedIn and your website in the show notes for all of our listeners. But thank you for taking the time today, and good luck to everybody on 420, and check out his product at CannMenus.com.
Thanks again, Lisa.
Have a good one.
You too.
Thank you, Vib, and thank you everybody for joining this week's episode. If you are interested in learning more about Cannabis Marketing Association and joining our community, you can find us online at thecannabismarketingassociation.com and check out our membership page. You can also email us at membership@marketingcannabis.org and follow us on social media. We're on LinkedIn. We've got a newsletter, which you can sign up for on our website. And on Instagram and Twitter, we are at Canna Marketing.